Before we get into graphing with rational functions, we're going to do some factor review because we have to be able to factor in order to solve these problems. First, you have your basic equation, the number in front of the x squared, that's always your a. In this case, it would be 1 if nothing shows up. The number in front of the x is always your b. And the number standing by itself is always your c. So when there's no number in front of the x squared, how you're going to factor, remember factoring is you want to see how did I get to that state. So if no number is in front of the x squared, that means both of my front factored polynomials will give me just an x. So then I want to look at 20. I want to figure out numbers that multiply to get 20, but also add together to get 9. So multiply to get your c, but add together to get b. So looking for the same numbers. So the different numbers we have could be 1 and 20, 2 and 10, we have 4 and 5, and that is it for all the factors. So if I add these together, I have 21, here I have 12 and 9. So it looks like these two numbers both multiply to get 20, 4 and 5, but also add together to get 9. So my factored version of this would be 4 plus 5 and 4 plus, or x plus 4 and x plus 5. Sorry about that. And that would be my final answer. Right now I want you to pause the video, attempt this one by yourself. Again, you're looking for numbers that multiply to get negative 18, but add together to get a negative 7. Now here you have to be careful because if I had 18 and negative 1, I could also use negative 18 and positive 1. So again, I want you to try to factor by yourself. So if you look here, you got negative 9 and 2. Those both multiply to get negative 18, but add together to get negative 7. So these right here are the two numbers that I'm going to use. So I realized that when you are doing these, some people are just good at figuring out the factors in their head. You do not always have to write out a full table, but if this is difficult for you, you should. So this would be my final factored version. For this problem, I don't have 3 terms. I don't have a c. So whenever that is the case, you want to look at your 2 terms that you have and see, do they have anything in common? Yes, they both have an x in common. So if I were to take out an x, so factor out an x, so I took out one of these first x's, that means I just have one x left. And then if I took out this x, I just have a 2 left. So this is another way to factor if I do not have an A, B, C format. Oh my gosh, what do? I have a number in front of my x squared. There's 2 ways that you could do this. You can figure out all the factors of 3 and all the factors of 2 that go together to get negative 7. But I always like to use the trick way. What's the trick way? Is I multiply my a times c. A times c here is going to be equal to 6. So I'm going to rewrite this. So it says x squared minus 7x plus 6. And now I'm going to look for my factors of 6 that multiply to get 6 but add together to get a negative 7. So since this one's positive, I'm going to look for 2 negative numbers since this is negative. And I know negative 6 and negative 1 would work. So I'm going to write down x minus 6 and x minus 1. Now you have to bring back that a. You have to bring back this a, this 3 right here. And I just usually put it into the box to the left. Because in order to bring it back, once you factor, you divide each term by that number. Now if it divides out like this problem, I have x minus 2 because 6 divided by 3 is equal to 2. In this case, this is not an even number, so I'm going to move the 3 out in front of my x. So this would be 3x minus 1. And this right here would be my final answer. So again, if you wish to, you can find the factors of 3 and 2 to see how do they go together to get negative 7. But I always like to use this trick method. And one final one, just kind of like the one I did before, if there's not 3 terms, you want to look at what do these 2 have in common. Sometimes if it's not easy for you to see, I would write down everything that I have there in prime factorization. So this would be 2 And then I have 5 x's. And then here I would have 2 times 2 because that's my prime factorization of 4. And then I have 3 x's. Because now it's easier for me to see that in common what they have 1, 2. They also have 3 x's. So I can take a 2x cubed out of my problem. And then inside, the first term is still left with 2 x's, so it would be x squared, minus the second term is left with just a 2. Now again, if you can look at this problem and factor straight here, that's fine. If it's hard for you, you should write out this middle step. And there you have it, review before 8.3. Have a wonderful night.